Hi folks, Lou here, and I'm going to talk about play balance in asymmetric games that have more than two players. Now, asymmetric means unequal or different starting positions. So in a game like My Britannia, which has four players, the four different colors that you can play all have different problems that can be solved in different ways. That makes the game more desirable, I think, for people who want to play it a lot. For people who only want to play the game 1 to 3 times and then know what to do, it doesn't work because, of course, there are four different colors and four different ways to play, and each color has multiple ways to play within it. The main point I want to make here is that if such a game is really well balanced, then there's probably not a different way to play it unless you change things drastically. And I'll take Britannia again as an example. The original Britannia had 3, 4, and 5 player versions, but it was always designed for 4 players. And the 3 and 5 didn't work so well. And when I revised it for the second edition, I tried to find better 3-player version and did, but the 5-player version I don't believe was even in the game because it's just too many players for the number of nations in the game. There's 17 nations in the game. And when you want to divide those 5 ways instead of 4, it just doesn't work out. There were drafting rules in the game as well for 4 players. That is, players would pick which nations they were going to run. And I have at various times tried really, really hard to find a different 4-player combination than the one that's in the game. And I have failed. And I have not seen one from drafting that was really well balanced. The difference being that it's the players choosing the sides in the drafting version, and consequently, if a player ends up with a bad combination, it's kind of the player's own fault. Now, this is all because the scoring is so detailed and so designed carefully to not only represent history, but also to encourage certain combats, certain wars, and so on, that if it's optimized for 4, it's just not going to work for a different combination, even if it's 4 players, let alone if it's 3 players or 5 players. Now, I have another prototype, for example, called Dark Ages, which is Europe, and has something like 55 areas and a bunch of nations, far more than 17. And I've had that play tested a long time ago at WBC, the convention. And after a play, one of the players told me, you know, this is really a natural 5-player game rather than 4. And he was right. And I have modified it to be a 5-player game. And if it ever sees the light of day, it will see the light of day as a 5-player game. But you can't optimize it if you're going to go into a lot of detail to have it be good for both 4 and 5 players. It just doesn't seem to work. Now, I have devised a version for the 3rd edition of Britannia, should it ever see the light of day, in which it's much more free form. So the scoring depends on where you place your scoring center, and consequently doesn't have a whole lot to do with history. What does have a lot to do with history is where you come in, where you land in Britain. Well, once that's been accomplished, you can move that scoring center around slowly, and the result is it's a much more free-form game than standard Britannia. And that works pretty well with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 players in ways that the original could not, because the objectives were defined more carefully. Thanks for listening.